All right, Jules, I want to stick with Paris Saint-Germain for a minute because, and specifically Luis Enrique. I'm going to go back to one of my favorite quotes in football from Franco Baldini, who was his sporting director in Rome, who said, he is the man any good man would want to be, but are too scared to be. In the sense that he does not care. He has his ideas. He has an idea. He sticks with it. He embraces life in his own way.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean he's always going to be a successful manager, because sometimes things come and change. And I think a lot of people really struggle to predict what he's going to do. You know, people talk about overthinking with some managers. I don't know if it's overthinking or if it's just thinking and his mind goes to strange places. So for this reason, I thought you were not a good fit for Paris Saint-Germain, because you need to get for Lucho to work, he needs to go and get buy-in from stars to go and do things that maybe aren't always obvious, sometimes are counterintuitive. And so far, the start in Ligue 1 hasn't been great. Paris Saint-Germain are third.
A few hiccups, yeah.
And I was surprised, and we saw you were very critical of the 4-2-4 or 4-2-2-2, the Leipzig-esque version. And they played that at the weekend, and I thought, aha! So now we're foreshadowing what they might do at home against Milan. But instead, they didn't do that. Gonzalo Ramos was on the bench. It was three midfielders. Yeah. Mbappe coming in from the wing.
Yeah.
It was much more traditional, if you want to say.
Yeah.
Do you think he's added, saying like, hey, guys, I don't need to be, Mr. Tactical Fancy Pants every game. Sometimes I can just kind of let my players do a lot of what comes naturally to them.
Yeah, and to be fair, to your point, the 4-2-4 and this 4-3-3 out of possession, 4-4-2 with the ball when Vitinha comes a bit wider, are the two systems that he's been using so far. And Newcastle clearly, and I didn't want to be too harsh on him, but he made a mistake, and it's maybe not so much that it was the wrong tactics at the beginning, is that he's stuck. But like you said, that's him. But that he's stuck with that 4-2-4 all the way through that game, where clearly there might have been something else to do. But
it worked well against Strasbourg.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we were not sure in this game if he would go again the 4-2-4, which showed the limits certainly in the Champions League, or revert to that other system that he'd been using, that he'd been working on. Because that's the other thing that I like about him. He's a workaholic, really. The work ethic is something else, and you can already see it in what we see on the pitch, the patterns of plays, what he's implementing to this team, the identity of this team already. And I like the fact that Dembele is fighting and counter-pressing and trying to get the ball back. Same with Colomani. Kylian is a little bit different. We've said that before. He's a bit exempt of those kind of things. But like Lucho said again yesterday, he said that after the Dortmund game, which was again very positive performance, they play as a team. And I think all he wants, you could give him any players you want, Messi and Neymar and Cristiano, I don't know, whoever, Kylian, blah, blah, blah. As long as he can make those individuals playing as a team, which Galtier never did, which Tuchel did to a certain extent quite well, but others have struggled to just not have 11 players on the pitch, but have actually a team of 11. And now you see that a bit more, which is very encouraging, I think. How far can they go? It's hard. They're still, I think, below Man City, of course, and probably Real Madrid and all of that. But there's a lot of good things in what they do. Even when they struggle a bit, like against Milan, when Milan start the game well, on the front foot, they find a way. And whether it's individually with Zaire Emery or Mbappe or Dembele, or collectively as a whole, they find those solutions. And I think that comes from him as well.
What's missing? If you could instantly open a magic box and be like, aha, here's an ingredient that's missing, I'm not saying put Paris Saint-Germain on City's level, but bring them closer to City. Like, what is the one need that you see, or the one potential flaw in this machine?
It's a good question, Gabi. Can Donnarumma win you the Champions League like Courtois did for Real Madrid, for example?
Well, he won the Euros, so let's not question Donnarumma.
No, but you see what I mean?
Expecting.
No, but I'm not sure.
All right, I'll give you one. I am sure.
Go on.
I mean, obviously, there's different things. These are things I had thought of. One is, up front, I find Colomwani and Ramos are very, very different players.
Yeah.
And so necessarily, if one of them isn't available, is in or out, you're going to have to make an adjustment, which is normally fine, but you've got Mbappe in that front three who's not really going to adjust. The other thing I would question in the midfield, and I always said experience is overrated and whatever, as good as Ugarte has been so far, and obviously we just raved about Zaire Emery, but he's
still only
17. Vitinha, I'm not a Vitinha guy. Fabian Ruiz is a guy who's been kind of in and out, whatever. I thought so. I really liked Soler a few years ago, but then I don't know what kind of player he is now. I put all these things together, and I wonder, could that be where they lose it? Not so much in terms of application, but maybe in terms of quality, maybe in terms of experience. I mean, that maybe is a weak point. Maybe depth at the back. Could they use more depth? I'm not a big Skriniar guy.
Kimpembe is going to come back, and
who's coming back? Sorry,
Kimpembe.
Yeah,
and
but
Nuno
I'm sorry. Every few months we say Kimpembe is coming back. It's like waiting for Godot.
Yeah, but if Nuno Mendes comes back at left back, and you can push Lucas Hernandez in centre back
as an option at the back.
Yeah, so you've got the depth. I only started by Donnarumma before you felt insulted.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Donnarumma was part of the problem.
Only because I was going to go line by line. But I agree with you 100%. Certainly in midfield, I don't think you can win the Champions League with Vitinha, Zaire Emery, and Ugarte, as much as I would love to. Certainly not this season. Maybe in 2 years if they grow all together, because they all three of them are quite young. And I think if you give Lucho some time, he can maybe make them a potential Champions League winning midfield, maybe. But yeah, you're right. There's probably in midfield where even the lack of creativity at times. Okay, I guess Milan or Dortmund, you didn't see so much. Newcastle was a write-off. But there's been games where it was screaming out for a Verratti or someone like that. Someone who could just, in tight spaces, could come and do something.
The creativity has to come from Hakimi, basically.
A lot of the time.
From deep. If you're playing somebody who's parking the bus.
Exactly. Or Kang In Lee, who came on and did really well, scored that goal, who I think could be potentially, but again, he's a young player. He's not a Champions League winner type of player right now.
The other thing I'm not sold on defensively, you make a good point, maybe Nuno Mendes comes back and Lucas Hernandez can move in the middle. But then that's not a very big central defensive partnership. Lucas Hernandez and Marquinhos.
No, Skriniar is your biggest, but he's slow, man.
Skriniar, is... I was surprised. Skriniar, to me, felt like a signing that Paris Saint-Germain would have made in the Leonardo days.
Yeah, but Skriniar against Giroud yesterday, perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Skriniar against Isak, or a fast, mobile, skillful striker, it's not.
Let's go back to this, because as you pointed out, Milan... 0 goals in the Champions League over the last 5 games, 0 goals this time around. And yet, this is a very attacking side that, certainly they created a ton of chances against Newcastle. They created more than enough chances against Dortmund. They certainly created chances last night as well. It was interesting because we touched upon it. Calabria coming out after the game not saying that we were naive, but he didn't seem too happy with the high line. Of course, coming on as a substitute at halftime. On the other hand, and then Pioli rebuked him kind of straight away, almost in real time. He says, no, this is the way we have to play. We have to attack, we have to press, we have to take the game to the opposition. I have to say, I don't think it's a secret to say when I reveal that Milan's owners, especially the previous owners, are big believer in analytics, that they've got people there who are big believers, who are big admirers of kind of the Red Bull school, the press, taking chances, attacking football to win, youth, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's almost as if Pioli has become more of a believer than they have in it. Is it just a question, you think, of staying patient and saying, because you said, why didn't he change his tactics? Well, this is the reason why he didn't change his tactics, because he believes this is the way to do it. And we've seen coaches, we've seen Germanic coaches kind of do this and go down with a ship or sometimes win.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting one. There's a lot of players missing. So you can mention Loftus-Cheek and Benacer and many others, which I think...
And I think also maybe the attacking options off the bench, Okafor, Chukwueze, who would have been different.
Especially, because then I think yesterday you were left with Luka Jovic maybe on the bench, and that's pretty much
that's
it.
That's exciting,
yeah, exactly. So if you put Okafor, Chukwueze, Loftus-Cheek and Benacer as options, this team is better, I think. Whether they start or not, it's still a better squad. And maybe that tactic with them is different. You know, I'm not a big fan of Krunic. I've said that before. I don't think you can win games at that level with him in your midfield. Reinders is still learning. He's still young, and Moussa is the same.
Reinders had a bad game, but he's a very good player.
Yeah,
he should be.
But again, a bit like the PSG midfield three, you need a bit of time with those three, well, especially Reinders and Moussa, for them to grow and to become those kind of Champions League dominating midfielders. So I'm not sure Giroud is made for the high press and the heavy press. I'm not sure a player like Malik Thiaw, who got booked after 4 minutes yesterday. So imagine starting a game with that plan of let's go high line, let's go aggressive, and then one of your centre backs gets booked after 4 minutes, 4 days after being sent off against Juve.
You think that might play on his mind a little bit?
You know, so I can see what Pioli was trying to do, and I like the fact that he owned it, even if Calabria and maybe others disagreed. But I think at times, even if that's your idea and that's the identity you want to develop, maybe you have to be a bit smarter, like Gabriel said. And what do you make of Rafael Leao? Because I think this is a game where maybe he put a lot of pressure on himself. I think PSG, when or if Kylian goes, would see him as a perfect replacement. Luis Campos knows him really well. He's like a father figure to him, blah, blah, blah. Did he put a lot of pressure on himself to try to do his own? Because that's what it looked like, certainly in the first half.
Look, I think football's a team sport, but it's individuals that can resolve games. It's the nature. It's at once it's a collective endeavor, and at once it's an individual endeavor. Milan have 3 players who can change the game on their own regularly, right? One is Magic Mike, and all right, what's he going to do? He's in goal, right? One is Teo Hernandez, and the other one is Rafael Leao. Teo Hernandez was terrible last night. Terrible. A really, really bad game. In games like these against better opponents, Milan need these guys to perform. Leao, I think, tries to do a lot. I think, weirdly, you don't want to say, Rafa, don't try this. Rafa, operate within the system. The way you might go and tell Pulisic, right, to do that. It's a tough one. I mean, Arrigo Sacchi came out recently and said, oh, well, if Rafael Leao was on my Milan team, he wouldn't be starting.
Interesting. It doesn't start for Portugal most of the time either, for example.
Right. Well, that Milan team had Julien and Van Basten, to be fair. But he said, because I believe in the collective pressing system, blah, 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 and all this stuff. I don't know. I think if you look at some of the best teams that we've seen in recent years, from Liverpool to Manchester City, they managed to somehow combine the whole collective effort with the fact that, oh, look, there goes Doku one-on-one. Or there's Haaland, steamrolling, or there's De Bruyne inventing something. It's really difficult to get the balance between the two. I think Leao can still get there.
Yeah.
In a game like this, Leao, I think, felt the responsibility of this contract and whatever. And that's fine. And that's what I want. I don't want somebody who hides. So I'm not going to blame Leao. I mean, sure, there were things he could have done better, but for me, Leao is not Milan's problem. Leao needs to start every game, and you need to give him that bit of license to invent.
That bit of freedom, yeah.